Hey, it's Carrie Flatlaw here with this week's Friday Fire at carrieflatlaw.com. So we're in a pandemic. We've done a good job of flattening the curve here in Alberta. Seems like, especially here in Lethbridge, so that's really good news. Real estate was declared an essential service way back at the beginning of this. So what does that look like for the spring market as it's unfolding now that we're clearly in mid-May? The weather is finally getting better, and we're having sort of a late blooming spring market, I guess you could say. And as I said in last week's Friday Fire, I think what's going to happen is, number one, there's not going to be a V-shaped recovery. That's the fundamentals in the economy just aren't there. But number two, we will see a little bit of a bump here because we do have people that have been waiting to make big financial decisions, and they were waiting to see what would happen with their jobs, with the economy, how their confidence is going to shake out about spending money, that kind of thing. So, that's good news in the short run. I think we still have to be very cautious in our optimism in the longer run for the economy in Alberta and across Canada. You just can't shut down the economy for 2 months and bounce back in a few weeks. It's just not possible. So that'll be interesting to see. That being said, it is busy right now. There is activity in the real estate market in Lethbridge, and we are still seeing multiple offers on individual properties, and I wanted to talk about that specifically. The first thing to understand, and I think people are always surprised by this, but multiple offers or competing bids, which it is not really a bid, but we'll talk about that later. But that situation with a property going hot actually has very little to do with what's happening in the market. So you could have a really lagging market. You could have a flat market, which is really what we have in Lethbridge most of the time for the last decade or longer. But you still have these pockets of activity and these certain types of listings that can go hot. And I say it has nothing to do with the market because you have to think about a house and a buyer for that house. And that house just needs one buyer to have a successful sale, right? But why couldn't, even in a slow or down market, one house have 3 buyers that are super interested in it out of 100,000 people in the city? It's really not that much of a stretch to consider that. But how does that happen? And then what are your options as a homeowner when that happens? It's not like on TV where the realtor just phones you and says, yeah, we got 5 offers and they're all like, tens of thousands of dollars over asking price, and isn't that great? Like, it's just not as clean as that. So first of all, for a property to go hot, what we often see in Lethbridge is it's usually in that 200 to low 300 range. Although I've seen it happen on more expensive homes, 400 plus, where we've had competing offers or backup offers or that kind of thing. But it's how that house is positioned for the ideal buyer. And I really believe that every home has a ideal buyer. And if you can find the ideal buyer, you will get the most money in the shortest amount of time possible for your home. That's where the strategy and positioning comes in when you're working with your real estate agent. Okay, so it's so much more than just slapping a price and a sign on the house and saying I'm for sale. How you position the house is a combination of things. You know who your buyer is, you speak to that ideal buyer, just like anything in marketing and advertising. And it's a blend of strategic pricing, staging, marketing, how the home presents, how you're promoting the home and talking about the home. You're creating a narrative about that home, and it becomes very emotionally compelling. But then what happens once an offer comes in? Because you usually don't get 2 offers at exactly the same time, like on TV. What happens more often is that one offer comes in from a realtor and you start working on that offer with a realtor, right? So I represent the homeowner, the seller, and another realtor represents the buyer, and we're negotiating. And then somewhere during that negotiation, before both parties have signed off on an accepted deal, another offer comes in. Or a realtor inquires and wants to submit an offer, and then there's conversation. The main thing to understand is that as the seller, you have lots of choices at every step along the way. You can ask your agent to disclose the existence of another offer on the table if another realtor wants to submit, or you cannot disclose the existence of another offer. Sometimes if a buyer knows that they're going to have to compete, they will immediately back off and maybe not submit an offer at all, right? Your realtor has to really read the situation, and then you have to decide how to proceed. But we always have to follow the homeowner's lawful instructions, and you always have choices. Now, if you do get into a situation where you have 2 or 3 offers in front of you, what you need to understand at that point is you can only choose one offer to negotiate on. You can't start playing games with all 3 buyers. It doesn't work like that because you can only have one buyer on the house. So you can't send a response back on 2 offers, because what if both buyers sign off and now you got 2 buyers and 2 contracts? You can't do that. You have to choose one. In the end, there's only one buyer. So that's one thing to understand. And what is disclosed or not disclosed to the buyer or other parties is up to you, and you instruct your realtor, and your realtor can help advise you on your choices there. It's all about choice when there's a competing offer situation or a potential competing offer situation. Competing offers can work for or against you depending on the market and the buyers you're dealing with. Some buyers are very shy about competing. Some buyers really want to compete. Maybe the first offer was amazing. Maybe the first offer was very weak. I mean, there's so many moving parts here. You need to understand all of that. And it's up to your realtor to sort of advise you of all of those different paths that you can take. The other thing that a lot of folks don't know is that once you have an accepted offer with one buyer, you can enter